Good morning, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting and working, and that's the Eastern Maar and the Wadawurrung, and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. It would have been lovely to give this presentation in person. I think we were all looking forward to that, to see your faces up close and to have a chat over a cup of tea in the break. But look, it wasn't meant to be. So instead today, I'm going to tell you a bit of a story about the Wild Otways Initiative. From fungi to PHYTOPHTHORA, potoroos and swamp antechinus, fire and ferals. We're a big team. We're covering a magnificent part of the country, and we are undertaking groundbreaking research and management of complex ecological issues. The project is funded by the Australian Government, and our goal is to protect and improve the plight of these fabulous fairy creatures, all of which are EPBC listed threatened species. It's a 3-year program and it ends in June 2023. The initiative encompasses 5 main projects and a $1 million community environment grants program. And I'm not going to detail for you today what we're doing in each program, but instead I'm going to get you thinking about some of the questions we're asking in this research. After all good research starts with asking the right question. And today you're going to hear from the fabulous scientists in the team about some of the answers to that research after 2 years of work. In the first program, the pig and deer eradication program, we're asking the question, can we actually eradicate locally pig and deer from the Otway Ranges? And first of all, we need to know, where are the feral pigs and the deer? How can we best control them on public and private land? And how can we involve the community in this important work? And this particular project is linking in with our PHYTOPHTHORA research and our rewilding program. The fox and cat management program is based in planned burn landscapes, and we're asking the question, will targeted feral fox and cat control measures before and after planned burns make a difference to the survival of small mammals? We're also interested in alternative burning methods and whether they will, varying the intensity, the season, the block size, the patchiness, whether this will affect the survival of small mammals post-fire. We're also asking the question, how do foxes and cats move around the heath landscape and what is their response to fire in that landscape? And this project is also connecting into our small mammals research and the potoroo research, which you'll hear about from Mark Lapla today. Our small mammal project is looking at what is the population density of small mammals in the Otways now compared to say 5, 10 or 20 years ago? Where are the refuges for small mammals? And what do these habitats look like? What are the threats to small mammals in those areas? And then finally, this will lead into which management actions will protect and enhance those habitats. This links to our PHYTOPHTHORA program because the research from Barbara Wilson has shown that when grass trees and other key species in PHYTOPHTHORA infected areas are killed, we lose the habitat, the protection and the food source for these small mammals. The PHYTOPHTHORA management program is really looking at where this disease is in the Otways. How do we identify and map it? Which areas do we need to protect as a priority? How can we treat the disease? What can we do to stop the spread? And can landscapes recover after PHYTOPHTHORA infection? We're also looking at whether hygiene, training and awareness will reduce the spread. And this links back into our small mammals program and also our pig and deer program, because it's well known that pigs and deer can carry PHYTOPHTHORA from one part of the landscape to the other. Our rewilding program had 2 stages. The first stage was deciding what to do and what are the best investments for the Otways. And once that was undertaken, we commenced our doing stage. And we've got a number of projects, including swamp antechinus translocation run by Zoos Victoria, an expanded pig and deer control program and monitoring, rehabilitation of post-infection landscapes with PHYTOPHTHORA cinnamomi, and spatial mapping of PHYTOPHTHORA cinnamoma in the Otways. And as you can see, there's links there with those other projects. The integrated monitoring framework asks the question, how effective are our environmental management actions in protecting biodiversity? We do lots of research and management, but we don't always go back to see how effective our research is or whether we're using the right sample size. Of course, for this program, we've got a team of absolute experts with years of experience, and we're confident in the techniques we're using. But as we know, funding for NRM is never huge. And what we're trying to do here is make sure that we get the best bang for buck in any future programs that we plan. Now, the questions I've posed today seem really simple, but in reality, the data analysis and the statistics behind the number crunching that's being done with both historical data and current data is really complex, but it will give a robust answer to the questions and confidence in decision making for the future. The frequency of natural disasters in recent years has meant that projects now come with funding set aside for emergencies. And luckily, we haven't had any emergencies during the 2 years of this project. So we've been able to reallocate some more of this funding to answer lots more questions that we have about the Otways. So we're asking, at what age post-fire does vegetation become reoccupied by small mammals? And the focus here is on potoroos and swamp antechinus. Will hand spraying of phosphite on susceptible plants near spoon drains and access tracks help to stop the spread of PHYTOPHTHORA cinnamomi in the Carlisle Heath? And what is the density of feral cats in the dry eucalypt forest of the Otways? We already have quite a bit of information from the wet forests and from the Carlisle Heath, so the gap in knowledge was with the dry eucalypt forest. And then finally, preparing a permit or permit information for a future curiosity trial in the Otways to see if that is an effective method of managing cats, feral cats. How are we communicating the research to the general public? So we've got a videography program, which is led by Streamline Media, and they're creating a documentary style video and some short media posts, as well as a hygiene training video for PHYTOPHTHORA cinnamomi. And as you can see, our trusty videographer goes to extraordinary lengths to get the money shot, especially when it comes to potoroos and swamp antechinus. And the next question we're asking is, how can the public access data, reports, maps, and spatial interpretations of this research? And this project is going to be delivered by Deakin University through a web portal project, designing a web portal that will give you all of the information towards the end of the project. So keep your eyes out for that next year. Now, to the most important part of this project is our partners. You'll be hearing today from all the fabulous scientists, and there are many doing fantastic work in this area. The Corangamite CMA, we really work as coordinators. We do the procurement, the administration, the project management, the reporting, communications, consultation, and we're making the connections between the different organisations. So really what we're trying to do is let the scientists concentrate on doing the science, and we're facilitating all of the rest. We're also working with the traditional owners, both on Wadawurrung and Eastern Maar land. And we're working with land care and community groups, which allows us to restore habitats on private land and get that landscape scale approach to this project. We're also working with a large number of land managers in the area who are either directly involved with the research or who have been connecting with us to see the results of this research. And finally, and I think one of the most unique parts about this project is this connection with DELP and Parks Victoria. So as part of this project, we have a project officer sitting both in Parks and in DELP who work directly on the Wild Otways program. They bring a wealth of knowledge and enthusiasm and oversight to the project, and they help us with permits, procedures, stakeholders, local knowledge, access and coordination, which means that the scientists can get on and do the work in a timely and coordinated way, and they don't have to worry about all of the administration around access to sites and all that sort of thing. And the most important part about this also is that the research findings are immediately disseminated to the land managers, and the land managers are actively involved in the research. And that's been one of the really fantastic outcomes of this project. The project has oversight through our governance structure, which involves a technical reference group with experts that advise on project issues and progress. And we also have a steering committee, which helps with decision making regarding these projects. And this is all local Otways-based experts who have many, many years' experience in the field. One of the other really key parts of this project is that we're dealing with landscape scale ecology here. We're talking about working on both private and public land, on parks land, on DELP land, and on private property. And that's really crucial when we're doing this kind of work where we've got so many threats. The feral animals move from one area to another very easily, and so we need to be covering that whole landscape in order to be effective, and that's what is making this program very successful. And finally, another really key part of this program is the science interpretation, and the fact that this interpretation is directing into on-ground action straight away while the project is running. So instead of waiting for papers to be published or for this information to disseminate, we are working directly with land managers and other organisations to interpret this information and to connect scientists directly with land managers. So I hope you enjoy the day today. You're going to hear some fantastic talks from scientists doing work through the Wild Otways program. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Jess. If you wanted to stop sharing, we're doing really well for time, so there's a couple of questions that I'll put to you and we can answer them live. Craig Morley from the Geelong Field Nats says, great program presentation. Just wondering about the curiosity test for feral cats, if there's a bit more information that you could pass on.
Sure. So curiosity is being used in Western Australia quite effectively in dry, sort of more desert areas, but it's never been tested in Victoria. The difficulty with feral cats is that there are not a lot of methods that we can use, and there is currently very little being done to control feral cats. So through our various discussions in our steering committee and our technical reference group and with our scientists, the question has always come up, what are we doing about cats? How are we going to deal with cats? And there was great interest in doing a curiosity trial, but unfortunately the time frame for this project didn't allow us to do that because of the long period it takes to get a permit. So the suggestion was made that we actually do the permit research now as part of that little bit of funding that came out of the emergency funding, and that information would then be sitting ready so that if one of the agencies wanted to pick up a curiosity trial, or if there is future funding, we could run a curiosity trial and see whether it's effective in that wet forest environment, which has not been tested.
Thanks, Jess. And another question from John Wright. With the post-fire reoccupation research, is the focus on time since fire, and or does it consider habitat structure suitability and how this changes over time following fire?
I might leave that question for some of our scientists who are directly working on that particular area. We are looking at time since fire in one of those studies from the emergency funding, and that study has only just commenced, so we haven't got any data or information on that yet. Obviously, there is a lot to consider with the structure of vegetation as well, and we are looking at the structure of vegetation for the different species we're focusing on. So we'll be looking in different areas for the swamp antechinus as opposed to the long-nosed potteroo. But I think that question might also come up in the later talks when we go into that fire management. So I might leave it at that.
Being one of those poor scientists that's having a fair bit to do with designing that work, John, I think we're working really hard to pick vegetation types that are very similar, so that the variable that does change is in fact fire age, as opposed to all the other factors. But we will elucidate further perhaps next year. Great. Hopefully that's done that justice. Thanks, Jess. You're off the hook, mate. There are no more questions. Thanks for your presentation.
Thank you.
And we'll